Like AJ said, I'm Amy Thomas, Senior Director of Programs and Development at the Manufacturing Institute, and I work on our Heroes Make America initiative, which helps manufacturers attract, hire, and retain talent from the military community. And yes, AJ, you're correct, wherever she went. Each year, around 200,000 men and women transition out of the military. These service members and women are uniquely positioned to step into careers in manufacturing, often having technical training, leadership skills, and mission focus. They are also accustomed to working in teams towards a common goal and know how to operate and excel in fast-paced, challenging environments, essential traits for manufacturing. Our Heroes Make America program uses a training model developed with input from diverse manufacturers of all sizes, and we're also an approved Department of Defense skill-rich program, allowing us access to train service members 6 months before they leave the military. Let's see if I can get this thing to work here. There we go. Our signature training program provides a roadmap for transitioning service members, National Guard, reservist, veterans, and active duty military spouses to earn industry-recognized certifications and credentials, career readiness instruction, transition support, and direct access to manufacturers that are hiring. We offer on-site and virtual training programs in production, logistics, and mechatronics, and we have recently incorporated the use of virtual reality headsets to supplement what they're learning in their training modules. We provide employers direct access to participants via our virtual events, such as Heroes Connect, Manufacturing 101 panels, and Women Heroes, a new partnership with our STEP Women's Initiative here at the Institute. Where available, we also offer on-site direct connections to our participants through manufacturing plant tours, recruiting, and networking events. Additionally, we offer employers resources through our partnerships with the SHRM Foundation and Psych Armor. We feature best practices, case studies, and a Heroes Make America playbook, all located on our website for manufacturers to welcome this talent to their workforce. I want to talk a little bit about our participant demographics. So as you can see from the slide here, 51% of our participants come from minority population. And of that, 16% are female. We're working to increase that number for the females. We represent over 136 different military occupation codes, and we have placed 25% of our graduates into supervisory roles. So this is a great slide here that'll give you a great breakdown of who's coming through our training programs. Finally, would like to highlight a few of our program successes to date. Currently, we've graduated over 600 service members through our training programs. We have a 90% placement rate, so we're really proud of that. We have placed graduates in 42 states and 1 U.S. territory with over 250 companies. And you can see there, we've got on-site training locations in Kansas, Texas, Kentucky, and North Carolina right now. And in January, we will launch Georgia for on-site. So just because they are transitioning out of those certain bases, it doesn't mean that they want to stay there. As you see, we've placed in over 42 states. So to drill down a little further on this, I want to introduce you to Andrew Sjogren. So I'll ask Andrew to come up here. Manager in Supplier Development and Vice President of Union Pacific Bets with Union Pacific. Andrew is a supply chain and logistics expert. Andrew also serves on active duty for the 155th Air Refueling Wing for the Nebraska Air National Guard. He is highly decorated and has been recognized as the 2021 Outstanding Airman of the Year. His military experience was critical for Union Pacific because he serves as the main point of contact for the Department of Defense and Union Pacific's military shipments. While at UP, Andrew served in various leadership roles with the Veterans Employee Resource Group. He is currently the vice president and will soon be the president. He will be responsible for the 700 plus members, veterans, and patriots across Union Pacific's 23 state footprint. Thank you for being here with us today, Andrew.
Thanks, Amy.
So I'm going to try.
Morning, everyone.
All right. So first, can you tell us about why manufacturers should invest and hire from the military community to include veterans and military spouses?
Absolutely. So when you look at it from a veteran standpoint, to kind of reiterate a few of the things you said, you have someone who is coming in and is team-centric and team-focused. The other thing with military individuals is, I can speak about it myself, there's not too many things that we find to be challenging, whereas it could be a very difficult task or a very difficult chore, and we'll figure out how to do it. And I think when you have people who are driven like that in your workforce, it helps kind of breed that mentality with others that they'll be working with. Military individuals too, you're getting someone who, 20, 30 years in multiple positions, that's a seasoned employee. It's tough to go out and find that in the streets, but if you're able to offer them, a good space and a positive environment to work in, it's an easy transition for them. On the spouse side, in first working with Amy and her group, I didn't even put much emphasis into this, but when you eliminate or take away the military spouses from potential candidates and potential opportunities, you're essentially telling 50% of your candidates, we're not as interested. You have veterans and you have their spouses or their partners or, someone that's moved around with them multiple times. They may have skill sets and I think that all of us across the board need to do a better job of tapping into that resource because it's there, it's available. When we held our women's event a few weeks ago, there were military members that were on there, but the number of spouses who were interested in what's going on in transportation and manufacturing actually kind of helped me flip my thinking and understand that we need to be going after both groups aggressively with the same kind of effort.
Yeah. And as a military spouse myself, moving around with my husband, it is harder for military spouses because they hear, oh, your spouse is in the military next, because how long are you going to be here? We need somebody long-term, not somebody, for a year or two. And so that definitely focusing on the military spouse as well as the veteran community should be done. And I think companies are getting better at that.
Absolutely.
Can you tell us a little bit more about how your military experience help you secure your job at Union Pacific?
Yeah, absolutely. So in the Air National Guard, I've been blessed and fortunate enough to be a part of 2 AFSCs, or our specialty codes. You may recognize them on the Army as MOSs. It's our jobs. So my first one was a bioenvironmental engineer. To kind of break that down into layman's terms, think industrial hygiene, OSHA, workplace safety and compliance. When I finished my MBA, the opportunity to work in our finance office came up. But to kind of bring that all full circle, when I applied for a position at UP, they saw someone who had safety experience, which is our number one goal at UP. Somebody who had finance experience, whether it be tax dollar allocations or payroll or, that finance bucket is very, very vast. And someone who had been a part of a team, who had volunteered for deployments to go overseas and help other groups out, and had the willingness to learn. I mean, I say environmental engineering and I say finance, but the number of jobs that I've had in my military career isn't just stuck at those 2 levels. Go help stack pallets, go help, pull equipment off the shelves to get go bags ready. And when UP saw that, they understood that they were getting someone who was willing to do what they could for the betterment of those around them. And in the 4 years that I've been at UP, I'm happy to say that I've never said no to any of the opportunities that they put in front of me, and it's benefited me up to this point.
Great. And that's something that we work with our service members and participants, military spouses even, in the HEROES program, is really helping them translate what they did in the service. Because if they've done it 4 years to 20 years, that's most of the time all that they have known, right? So a lot of them went from high school right into the service, never had to write a resume, never had to go through the interview process, so that's all very scary to them, doing that. For example, some of the bases have these mega fairs, mega job fairs, and all the employers can come. And you can have a 25-year plus seasoned colonel, and they're shaking in their boots when they're standing to walk in that room. They've gone to war, but all of these employers out there, they're like, uncommon territory for them, and so, they'll walk up and have 20 resumes in their hand clenched tightly, and so we work with them on that. And the career transition is, yes, you were in the infantry. Yes, you may have walked a lot and carried a bag full of bullets, but you also did logistics, communication, safety. All of that came into fruition, and you were getting shot at the same time, and you got all of that done. And so it's really helping them change their narrative and understand that civilians won't understand what you did as an infantryman. Some might if they were in the service, but if you need to take that on your resume so they understand what you did and relate it to those terms. So we work on that. We work with mentors like Andrew to say, if you're having problems, let me mentor you with a veteran that made it to the other side. They successfully transitioned and are working in manufacturing. So that's a big part of our Heroes program, is helping them translate those military skills so that HR can understand it. And then on the other side, we help the employers by providing these trainings to help them understand how to read it, right? How to read the resume if one comes across that does have 50 million acronyms on it. You're like, what is that? Yep. So one of the great things that we do.
And if I may, after our event that we had that focused solely on bringing more females into the manufacturing and transportation sector, I had someone reach out to me directly. This former soldier, to say the least, would be able to step into any company and be an immediate supervisor or leader in their HR department based on what she has done in the military. 25 plus years in EEO, HR, manning, whatever you can think of. But she kept getting rejected. And I looked at her resume, and I am a anti-proponent for all the military acronyms. They drive me insane. Just tell me what you need me to do. I don't need it broken down in 4 and 5 letter acronyms. But we realized that she's sending resumes out to these companies and they're not understanding the significance. So when we kind of pulled it all together, I was able to explain to her, like, what you're doing right now is what a director at my company would do HR wise, which is that's a good level position. And so I explained to her, like, stop selling yourself short, go out in the world with this new resume. Like, you have the ability to be an external candidate and step in and lead a team. You've already done it. You've done it for 25 years. So we'll kind of go into a little bit more with some of the other questions, but the best resource that you have is veterans working at your companies right now. Don't try to dissect maybe context or information on a resume from a veteran or from their spouse that you may not understand. Use your resources internally, because your military veterans will be the first ones to tell you, hey, this is a rock star candidate. You should go after them. And it didn't cost you anything, right? So best thing that you can do. But yeah.
Right. A lot of our manufacturers are interested or want to know more about how do I hire from the National Guard or the Air National Guard when they're active duty? What do I need to know when drill weekend comes up, or if they get deployed and they have to be gone for 6 months? So can you talk to a little bit, since you are currently active duty and working in full time, can you talk to that a little bit about what manufacturers should be aware of? Yeah,
absolutely. And I'm going to split it into two, because there's a little bit of a, I guess, preconceived notion about the whole drill weekend things. There are 2 days out of the year where I have to miss work. It's 2 Fridays. So that's my case, right? That may be different depending upon your service of branch. I know the Army sometimes drills a little bit more, but don't be afraid of drill weekends. Saturdays and Sundays for the most part, even if they drill 3 days a month, you're only really losing them 1 day of the week. So it's never been an issue for our company and any of the previous other companies that I worked for. The best thing I can tell you is if you're transparent with your workers, they'll be transparent with you. My boss has my calendar a year in advance. So we know how to plan. All right. And in those days, I'll pretty much try to have everything kind of covered up to that point. But in regards to the deployment, 6 months to 18 months can sometimes be tricky. I have not solved that problem yet. What I can tell you is, don't wait until the 11th hour to make sure individuals on that deployed members team are learning the job and the tasks. Give them opportunity to kind of rotate around and see what they do. I think if anything over the last 2 years has taught us balancing workloads is possible. We just have to put that expectation out there that, hey, this is going to happen, but it's not going to be forever. But I know also too on the guard side, my deployment that I went on and any of my future deployments that I will go on have all been from a volunteer base as well. So if you constantly have one or two individuals raising their hand and saying, hey, I'm going on 6-month deployment, and you're like, well, you've been gone for, you've been working here for 2 years, but you've been gone for 18 months. There might be some questions that need to be asked internally, like, why do you feel like you constantly have to leave? And we'll kind of get into that with more of the other questions that are to follow. But that's how I would recommend handling those two. Drill weekends have never been an issue for any employers that I know or any employers that I've been a part of. But from a deployment standpoint, just engage your team. Have conversations. If there's concerns with some of those team members that are going to step up, the time to address them is when you find out about the deployment and not one day before that member is going to be overseas or out of contact for 6 months up to a year and a half.
Great. Well, incredibly, in the last few years, 1 in 4 hires at Union Pacific have been from the military community. Your workforce is up to 25% military affiliated at Union Pacific. And you work closely with your HR team to make that happen. So how does partnering with organizations like the Manufacturing Institute or the Heroes Make America program help you in those efforts?
Yeah. Imagine being able to reap the benefits and having someone else do the work, right? I have gotten to know Amy and her team, closely over the last month, and the amount of work that they are putting in to help individuals who are in my maybe same circumstance, who are transitioning out and looking for opportunities in the private sector or the civilian sector. It's kind of twofold, right? I go back to my previous comments. When we on the civilian side try to dissect and figure out what a service member's career actually looks like, it can sometimes be challenging. And to her point, you have these very seasoned veterans who are coming out of the service, and they walk into an interview room, and these are people who have been deployed overseas, have been in harrowing situations, and they're afraid to talk to 3 HR talent acquisition people. So you have this, I hate using this term, but I'm going to use it. You have this middle enterprise that's willing to say, you know what, we're not only going to prepare the candidate and make sure that they are ready to walk in and do an interview, we're going to train them. We're going to certify them. We're going to put them in position with companies that are partnering with us so that those companies can reap the benefits. And you guys on the other side, being the manufacturing and transportation companies, get a well-seasoned, polished employee who maybe without the help of this group, you wouldn't even know they existed. Think about how great and beneficial that is. And I know that UP has started to bolster and build our relationship with your group. And I'm excited to see where the future goes. We have a big initiative that we're trying to institute, which is an 11% improvement for females in our, what I would like to call labor-intensive jobs. And for a while, we're beating our heads against the wall. Like, how are we going to accomplish this?
Yeah, and that's exactly why we built Heroes Make America, was to make those connections between the military community and the manufacturing and transportation industries. So just to help them bridge that gap. So when they're getting out of the service, they're coming out with a job, or if they're already out of the service and still need help finding a job, veterans are welcome into our training program as well. So let's talk about your Veterans Employee Resource Group, 700 members strong across 23 states. So that's pretty exciting. What are some tips and tricks or best practices if industry doesn't have a Veterans Employee Resource Group? How should they start one? If they have one, how do they bring it back to life? If it's kind of, dwindling down, how do they keep it interactive and engaged in this incredibly empowering group like Union Pacific has done? Yeah.
And I'm going to spend the bulk of my time talking about this because I love my ERG personally, but I also love the other ERGs that Union Pacific has to represent a multitude of demographics. The one thing that I would encourage you, so if you do not have an employee veterans ERG, the thing that I tell our field chapters in various locations when they want to get started is you don't have to do something every single day to make the world a better place. Find your niche event, find your niche group. Our Houston field chapter, guy by the name of Joe McCluskey, I'm going to go see him in Houston next week. They have found a way to partner with Toys for Tots and the Marine Corps Battalion in Houston, Texas. And I think over the last 2 years have delivered 60,000 pounds in toys. This year, they're going to try to match that number over the last 2 years. And you think about the struggles of last year, and they were still able to accomplish 45,000 pounds of toys. That's their event for the year. They put all their eggs in that basket. They're successful at it. And it's really kind of brought an understanding to the community of how important this group is to the community. Could you imagine if they tried to do something like that once a week or once a month? People get burned out, right? And that's one of the tough things, to your second point of how, if we have one, how do we re-engage it? Explain to these individuals that you don't need to have 12 marquee events a year. If you have one or two, your employees will be excited, they'll be engaged, and they'll want to jump in and help out as much as they can. Establish roles and responsibilities. The other thing that makes these ERGs kind of difficult is you sometimes have people, and I'm guilty of this as well, who want to jump in and do everything. And sometimes that can kind of rub people the wrong way, or people feel like their voice isn't being heard. My role and responsibility as vice president is to make sure that individuals who step up and want to volunteer for this have every equal right and opportunity to be heard, to be seen, to contribute to the group in a positive way. And so, that right there makes sure that everybody is doing their part to positively impact our community. Setting up 501c3 status. I mean, we are a 501c3 status charity. So that helps us from a legitimacy standpoint when we're trying to go out into the community to positively impact other people. And lastly, I would tell you this, all right? And we can have a further discussion about this maybe off camera, but don't make people feel like they have to be not part of it, all right? I always joke, I'm part of LEAD, which is a female empowerment group at UP. As you can see from me sitting up here, I do not necessarily belong to that demographic. A big problem that we have sometimes at UP that we're slowly getting over is, well, I can't be a part of vets because I'm not a veteran. That's not necessarily true at all. You said you were a military spouse. You could be a member of veteran. You may have a brother or sister that is, currently overseas. Why couldn't you be a part of UP Vets? It impacts your family, all right? Implore your employees, implore those individuals in your company that when you have employee resource groups, demographic means nothing. It would be the most counterproductive thing for diversity and inclusion to say, just because this is a veterans group, we're only allowing veterans in. Or just because LEAD is a female empowerment group, only females are a part. Progress is not made that way. You have to open the doors and tell anyone, please come in, we're happy to have you.
Well, Thank you so much, Andrew. This has been a great conversation today, and hopefully everybody got some good takeaways from it. I would be remiss if I didn't say how you can connect with us, right? So we also have a LinkedIn showcase page that is most up to date on events that we're doing, graduation, when classes are starting, and those types of events. So thank you so much, and I think we're good.
Thanks. Thank you, everyone.